Hey everybody, it's Garrick. I am back with another video. I am walking and talking as I'm in a big hurry. Getting out today to shoot some macro, some woodland macro. I've got my D850 and my 100 millimeter macro lens 1:1. And the sun's going down. You can't see that too well, but the sun is going down. I got about 35-40 minutes, and I got about a quarter mile left to walk to get to my spot. Then I want to shoot some macro, and then we'll take you into the photo lab and we'll do some processing. So thank you so much for coming back to the channel. If it's your first time here, please hit the like button, and it would mean a hell of a lot to me if you hit the subscribe button too. So, all right, everybody. Hey, I'll be back in just a second. All right, so this behind me is what is called Silver Springs, and I'm at Silver Springs State Park, and this is the actual Silver Springs. It's really beautiful in the winter time when there's snow on both sides of it. Then you have the trees and you have the green of all the lily and all that stuff that's in the water. It's just gorgeous. But I want to use my macro today and get in tight and like almost microscopic on some of these, I don't even know what it's called, some of this green stuff that's in the water. So that's what I'm going to do. That's what I'm going to try to do right now. So here we go. Whenever you're going out to shoot macro, especially woodland macro, you're really dependent on the two basic, or not the two, you're really dependent on the basic foundations of making a good image, right? You want foreground interest, you need, something in the middle of the image, you need something to lead the viewer's eye through the image, and then you need some interest in the back. Additionally, you really need light and shadow, the two most basic components of photography, period. And today, sun's going down. I'm kind of sunk down into a little bit of a valley within the woods here, and it's cloudy. So there's no shadow down here. We're all in shadow. So I have no shadow. I have, really diffused light, which is fine, especially if you're doing like portraits. But not so fine for macro. It makes it quite a challenge, actually. So what you need to do if you're out here with one lens, like I am today, and you want to make some pictures, that really kind of forces you to look for pattern and texture and contrast and synchronicity, repetitive. I guess that would fall underneath the pattern word, but you get what I'm saying. It just makes it, when you don't have that light and shadow bouncing off of each other and playing with that light and shadow to help influence your image, you're challenged to make your image interesting in other ways, and that's and that's texture and pattern and composition. So that's it. I've got a bunch of images in the bag. I shot most of them right here in the Silver Springs. I went around and shot a couple of old leaves. You want to find, that's another thing, you want to find texture and pattern and character and charm, all those things that you can build into your image. So with that being said, I think I got some good images that we can take into Lightroom and do some processing. So I'm going to pack everything up and I'll meet you back in the photo lab. So another challenge that I had today that you can prepare yourself for is I came out here, I didn't have the right kind of shoes. Why is that important? It's important because I could not get directly over my subject. So I'm shooting at, a slight angle, and shooting macro, you have a very narrow depth of field. Even at, f16, 18, 22, you've got a very narrow depth of field. So if you want to shoot like a cool abstract, you really want to be straight, shooting down, so everything is in that same plane of focus. And because I couldn't step out into the creek in just my tennis shoes, I was at an angle. So that's going to definitely impact the images, and you'll see that when we get back into Lightroom. So yeah, so that's really important. That's some good takeaway for myself and all you guys too. So wear the right shoes. Be prepared, Boy Scouts. All right. Alright, so here we are in the photo lab, and let's get one thing out of the way right away, and that's these pictures are god-awful. So that being said, we will go ahead and we will try to process and try to save one of them. You can see here. No bueno. Awful. Blah. This one's close to being okay. Here's a real good example of being on an angle and the shallow depth of field blowing way too much out of focus. This leaf has a lot of character to it, but just not very good. Not very good. So we're going to try to save this one the best that we can. Got a lot of pattern. The green little leaves have some character and some pattern and some contrast, and then you can see the stuff going on underneath the water. So you can see in the histogram that it's overexposed a little bit. So first I always go into the basic panel and I just do auto. Usually do auto on the white balance. It depends. If I'm in an obvious lighting situation where it's fluorescent or tungsten light, I'll use that. But outside, I'm usually good with auto. And then I take the highlights all the way down because I'm shooting raw, right? So you want to use that dynamic range. So I'm going to bring the highlights all the way down, shadows all the way up. And then I drop them down here to details. And what I do is just go to the masking and I hit Alt and then click and hold and drag till I get to a good spot. Right about there. Then I do my lens corrections. And then I would do transform, but there's no real reason to do that here. It's not going to do. Plus with that macro lens at 1:1, you're not going to get any change when you hit the transform button. And then I would go and add a little bit of a vignette. I usually do that last. I'm kind of jumping out of order a little bit. So I'm coming up back here because I just pulled the whites all the way down. I opened the shadows all the way up. Now I'm going to hit Alt or Option on the whites and take them right to the edge of where they're being clipped. So you can see that blue show up. I'm going to go back to the left just a touch until that goes away. And we're good. Now I'm going to take the blacks a little bit further because I want this water to show up good and black. About right there. That might actually be a little too much. So I'm going to hit Alt again, click and hold, and bring it back just a touch. So that's not too bad. So from there, I'm going to take a look at texture and clarity and see what that'll do for us. You don't want to go too far with these things. You want to be very subtle about it. If you're up over 15, you're usually a little bit too far, in my opinion. Depends, obviously. Not doing anything with vibrance or saturation here. I'm going to come back down and take a look at my vignette. So now for me, there's way too much blue cast in this image right now. So I'm going to try to take a little bit of that out. I'm going to do it up here in the white balance slider. And that's much better. And then I want to take a look at the dehaze. I'm actually going to use a custom brush for that. So I don't know if you noticed, but I clicked right up here to open up this panel. And then I want to click here where it says custom. You come down and find dehaze. So there's the dehaze. And what I want to do is just go over where this stuff is under the water, because the dehaze will help bring it up. It's almost like having a polarizer in front of your lens when you're out in the field shooting. So yeah, that kind of really brought that out quite a bit. Let me see if I can turn that off and turn it back on. Off. And on. Yeah, I like that. It makes it better, in my opinion. I like being able to have that clarity looking through the water, so that's cool. And with that, I'm going to call this done. And yeah, sorry, these images were not great, but some good lessons within this video, right? You make sure you have the right shoes, and you know, when you're constructing your macro images, you want to keep the basic fundamentals of your photography at the front of your mind: composition, light, shadow, character, charm, repetition, or not repetition, pattern, texture, all that good stuff. Foreground, foreground interest, midground interest, background, leading lines. That all plays into macro photography as well. Unless you're shooting cool insects like these guys that are really good at macro, that's what they do. Those things are just like amazing. I see that stuff and I'm like in awe. So, all right. So good stuff. And we'll do better next time for sure. So, all right, everybody. All right, so from Silver Springs State Park in Kendall County, Illinois, I am Garrick, and I am your best friend in the whole wide world. So hit that like button, share, and hit that old subscribe button if you haven't already, and we'll see you next week. All right, everybody. Hey, thank you so much. We'll see you. Bye-bye.